you're in the weeds every day, and you need to learn how to step away and look at the problem you're solving instead of the product that you've fallen in love with.
This is the co-founder of FounderWay, Kiran Panjwani. Kiran has built a platform that aims to be your AI co-founder, trained on data from over 1,500 startups and 200 founder interviews. This tech is being used by universities and incubators around the country to assist the next generation of founders. We asked Kiran about her career in startup incubation and how she thinks AI is set to transform the new founder experience. Welcome to the show, Kiran.
Thank you.
Kiran, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys.
So glad to have you here. We like to start off with a little bit of background. Would love to learn more about who you are and what got you into entrepreneurship in the first place.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Of course.
My entrepreneurial journey actually started when I was 14 years old. And I had this idea of just decorating small diaries that people would have. And I went to the local store, the local bookstore where I grew up. And I asked the guy, I said, would you sell my diaries that are full of sequences and glitter? And he's like, yes. And in that moment, he asked me, how much are these for? And I had no idea. And I had to make up a price in that moment. And I said, okay, this is the price that it's going to be. I said 25 rupees for, one diary. And he said, sure. And at that point, I'm like, wow, I bought this for like 3 rupees. I decorated it. And this guy's willing to pay me 25 rupees for one diary. So that's where my journey in entrepreneurship began. You realize that you kind of wear different hats all the time. And then you have to think quick on your feet. I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. Dining table conversations were accounting, finance, what machines are coming in. And my family comes from a background of manufacturing auto parts. And I kind of grew up on the factory floor on Saturdays. We'd get to go see how things are working, where the shipments are going, and just seeing my father wear the different hats that he's worn in his life. And it was just innate in me. And in university, when I had the opportunity to take an entrepreneurship class, I loved it. Just ate it all up. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I'm supposed to be studying finance here, but you know what? This is awesome. And then obviously I went into banking because that was the way I could have made money. And I was chained to my desk for a while and, started working in private equity, banking, and then started my own company called Squishlock, which was this passion project of mine. And it was the most educational experience that I had as a entrepreneur because I wanted to build a physical product that I had never built in my entire life. And I learned how to 3D print, learned how to do AutoCAD, and manufactured the product in Asia, did a Kickstarter campaign.
Oh, wow.
And launched the product and sold it on Amazon.
Amazing.
And then I got bored and I said, this is not a company, I have a product. And right around there, I started working at Mars Discovery District, and I realized, oh my God, the world of technology and how much more you can do and the impact that you can create. So that really is like a summary of how I got into entrepreneurship. And then, of course, my love for FounderWay, for founders and working with startups started from there. And yeah, the rest is kind of history.
I love your family story. I think the concept of like talking about entrepreneurship at the dinner table, that was definitely important in my life. My first venture was a lemonade stand where I sold lemonade, 1 cup for 25 cents and wait for it, 2 for 75 cents. And, back in the day, my parents were like, you don't know how to do math. But today they say, you might have actually known what you were doing.
Yeah.
Inflation. Nevertheless, we're here.
Yeah, if you could touch a bit more about your tenure at Mars and your different roles there and specifically how you interacted with different types of startups.
Yeah. So I started at Mars as the manager for a funding program. And essentially how it worked was the Canadian government had a stipend of money that they would allocate for certain programs. And we had about, depending on the year, a couple of $1 million to provide to early stage startups. And the programs were called Embedded Executive and Embark Funding Program. The idea was to bring an executive inside your startup to help you accelerate your journey in 6 months. So the fund would pay for the startups to kind of bring that person in to get to where they wanted to get to, fractional CFO, fractional CMO. I loved the companies that I got to meet through that experience. I also really enjoyed the part of understanding what were their challenges, what were their milestones, not only of the companies that got accepted in the program. I ran this thing called office hours for the people that didn't get into the program.
Wow.
And that really got me intrigued. It's like, it was the journey for the people that are going to make it, kind of, once you make it, you climb one after another. It's a difficult journey. But the ones that don't even get into the door, I was inquisitive about why they didn't make it to their door. What about their story didn't resonate with others that they were presenting to? What could they have done differently? What are their challenges? And that's what got me started at Mars. That brought me to running the START program eventually. I ran the regional program for the government, where I got to look across 18 accelerators and incubators, understanding each community is so different. Each founder that comes into that community is so different. How do you service them? And that got me even more inquisitive. And, the more startups and more founders I spoke to, the more I realized that the challenge is bigger than just entry into the door, more than just education. It's the bespoke nature of how do you help them in the challenge that they're having, the product market fit that they're looking for.
And can you share some examples of the type of advice you would provide? Because, people provide advice on product market fit. They provide advice on getting initial clients. But maybe they don't provide advice on the day-to-day life of what it's like to be a startup founder. Is that something that maybe you did in that role?
Absolutely. As a founder, and I'm included. I, ran Squishlock and, another chocolate company called Gaia. You're blinded. You're in the weeds every day. And you need to learn how to step away and look at the problem you're solving instead of the product that you've fallen in love with. You're often looking for product market fit as a founder. So I would always tell them, let's take a step back and look for problem customer fit.
Tell us more about that, please.
So most founders that we would meet at an early stage some of them would be like engineers, scientists, brilliant people. And they would be like, I have this amazing product. And the first question you want to ask them is, who is it for? And their answer is everybody. And when you hear that, you know that they haven't done enough research on how to get to that everybody. You got to get on their terms and understand where they're coming from. And on your, every founder on their journey has met advisors that have either, said, hey, it's not going to work, directly to them to waste, cut the waste of time that they're going to have. But honestly, the best ones are the ones that ask you the questions and let you figure it out on your own. Because if you give me the answer, that journey is my closure as a founder, whether it's going to work for me or not. And if it's going to work, that journey of figuring out what problem am I solving with this product is there's just so much learning that founder has that they automatically figure out who their exact customer is when they're on that journey. So problem customer is where we started. In fact, we do that in FounderWay as well. A founder comes to us with, what's your idea? We ask them that question on onboarding, and then we bring them back to, hey, let's talk about the problem you're solving.
Problem customer fit. Do not forget that. Problem customer fit. PCF, that's going to be the new thing. We're going to push that out as much as we can. Seriously, that's excellent. That should be everywhere. It makes so much more sense than product market fit, especially when you're first getting started. Because nobody does say to start with the product. They say to start with the problem, but there's not a great acronym for it. And so now we have it, PCF.
If you could touch up on your story on how you founded FounderWay and the driving force, inspiration behind that.
Absolutely. I think, I'm going to put dates around it so that you guys know how long I've had this idea for.
Sure. Please.
In 2014, I was working at Mars. That's when I got exposed to learning about startups and their journey. And I ran a bunch of programs there. I left Mars in 2019. And in 2020, I moved to Massachusetts. And in that time, I was still kind of like sitting with like, hey, founders, like, where's my startup community? I always felt like the startup community was my community. Started attending events at Cambridge Innovation Center, teaching some of the classes there. And really like still tinkering around with how can I help more founders. And I had this concept during that time that I had away from Mars and sitting by myself. I had this concept of, how do we understand, how do you go from idea to customer, and that eventually that idea, that problem to customer becomes into product. What is that formula? What does that mix look like? What is that journey of you going up and down between your problem and your customer and eventually your product and your customer? Because once you figure out that your problem has a product, then it becomes into product customer fit. And I was just constantly tinkering with it, and I started putting all the data in my head on spreadsheets and bringing it all to life, and started teaching it more and more, and started consulting all the companies in 2020. Startups, I just met Cody at a random webinar. This is
a
COVID.
Webinar?
Yeah, a webinar.
Wow.
And this is COVID. Everything's online. And he went ahead of me in turn, like everyone was introducing themselves, and he introduced the idea, what he was working on, and it's our parent, like our company is called DM, and FounderWay is a product of DM. And he said, DM does this, like DM helps founders figure out how to go from idea to first customer. And I was like, oh my God, that's my idea. I'm going to talk to this guy. And
Amazing.
I went next, and I was like, I kid you not, this might sound like I stole his idea. But, this is my background. This is what I come with. Like, I had to build credibility right then and there and say, I've been doing this for so long. And he had the technology side of it. He had the tech team set up, and I didn't have that background. And just talking to him, we talked for 4 to 6 months before we even started paperwork to work together.
Wow. Co-founder meeting stories are always fascinating, but I think you want to try to find someone that, hypothetically speaks your own language.
Totally.
That when they're talking, you see the vision that they have, and you're able to then apply it to making something into a reality. And I think that's being at the same webinar, that's a good kind of like baseline. Okay, they're interested in maybe the same thing as you are, but then taking the step of saying, okay, we're going to work on something together and having conversations before you even formalize anything. That's the way to do it. And I'm really glad that you two did meet and you figured all that out.
Yeah, no, I think COVID helped taking that barrier away of saying that I have to meet someone in my own city, and, the friction that we all feel that now we're all comfortable working from home or anywhere.
Oh yeah, and it makes like remote teams for startups are like amazing because you're able to then make so many different things a reality.
For sure.
I mean, it used to be like, I started my first business when I was in college. And so like that was, you were only working with people that were not even in your city, but just at your college. So to now be in a world where people are comfortable working remotely, especially with the nature of early stage startup work, because it's just so specific. Being able to connect with people all over the world and finding specialists is so important. So that's a really great point.
Yeah.
If we could pivot back to FounderWay, can you, in your language, explain what it is, what it does, and what hopes to achieve?
Yeah. So currently, FounderWay is an AI platform that helps early stage founders go from idea to first customer. While they do that on the platform, we provide them with a guided journey that's been built by us through design thinking and customer-centric design. We have templates for them to fill up if they're in school or they're currently doing lean model canvas. They can do that on our platform as well with AI guidance, as well as our AI chat. Our AI chat, in fact, learns about them as they tell us more about what they're building. And we essentially become like their second brain. Some people call us like an AI co-founder, a second brain, or even AI chief of staff. So we're still figuring out our identity in that sense. But one of the things we know we want to be is we want to make the founder journey more efficient. We want to remove the friction. We want to help founders figure out what they don't know and help them get to what they want to know faster and more efficiently and with more certainty. One of the biggest challenges that is there in the industry is free advice is worth free advice, mostly when you're talking to others. If founders were more informed about the advice that they're getting, they can then have perspective and say, I heard this from someone who was in for example, fintech, from the fintech industry, and I'm in edtech. That advice would be great for someone in fintech. Does that apply to me, yes or no? At the end of the day, it's the founder's decision to move forward with advice or not to move forward with advice. So with FounderWay, we provide them with a base to learn about how to make good decisions as well.
And so in that context of, providing advice to founders, you necessarily have to be customer-centric in your approach, right? If you could elaborate more on what that means to you as a founder and how that affects your day-to-day responsibilities, I think that would be great.
Absolutely. I love customer interviews. I am such a big sucker for customer interviews. I love getting on calls with people and saying, hey, where did you get stuck? What went wrong? Do you not like the color of my button? So, but definitely it's so ingrained in us that when we try and launch a new feature or even think of a dimension we want to expand in, the first thing we think of is how can we validate this hypothesis that we have as founders in the company. So we immediately run back to who is this problem that we're solving for? Because we sell the platform through colleges, we bring the platform to our founders through colleges, universities, entrepreneurial ecosystems in our community. If it's something that's solving for the trainers or the people who are administrators of the platform, then we'll go to them and be like, hey, we're thinking of this. Tell us how you currently solve this problem. Or if it's for the founder, we will directly reach out to our customers and have conversations with them.
And so those customer conversations, I think that makes a lot of sense. That's, of course, where you're getting that information from. But then the process of transcribing that into a technical feature is a different process.
Absolutely.
Could you maybe walk us through that process and how
Yes.
you work with Cody on that?
Yes. So we absolutely love that. We are so blessed that we have a UX UI team of co-ops that come in
Nice.
every semester. This semester we have 3. And we essentially follow the design thinking process. We practice what we preach. Cody calls it eating our own dog food. So we start with the interviews. Once we have the data from the interviews, we start synthesizing the data and bringing out what are the pain points, what are the frustrations, what are the nice to haves versus what are the must haves. We then go into something called how might we? How might we help the founder solve XYZ problem? We then go into ideation sessions, and there are many different ways you can ideate features. And we start with extremely low fidelity. Like everyone take out a piece of paper, let's draw what that idea, what that solution can look like to solve that problem.
Right.
We then go from low fidelity to mid fidelity. And during that time, we go back to the customer and say, hey, we understood it this way. Did I get you right? Like, am I missing something? And that's how we then go into production. Backend starts understanding what are the features we're trying to build. UX UI starts designing it. Front end gets ready to hand over to get a handoff of the features that UI has designed.
Continuing customer discovery while already beginning the UI UX design process, I think is actually fascinating. I feel like most people would stop the discovery, right before they're about to then engage with the UI UX designers. Having that kind of be an ongoing and iterative process, I think is a really fascinating approach.
Yeah, we take mid-fi's to our customers and be like, because you can make clickable prototypes. I mean, it's 2024. Figma allows you to build something that looks so real. Our customers don't even know it's not even built yet.
I mean, the concept of just learning constantly through customers is something that I just have to get across. If you're thinking of something that you want to do that will improve your business, just ask your current customers if you think that they would use it. It's really that simple. And, you want to pretend maybe sometimes like you have a black box behind your technology or a black box behind the product you're creating. But in reality, somebody has to buy that product and the secret will get out. People will find out what's powering the product. You might as well just start early and instead create a product that people want. I think that that's so important.
To follow up on that, once you developed the product, the AI CoPilot, what was the decision making to the business model of like pushing it out? You said at colleges. Can you elaborate a bit more?
Yeah, the AI CoPilot, in fact, when we first built it out, Cody put it together, I think, overnight or something.
Oh, wow.
We had this idea, we're like, oh my God, generative AI, we can do this. Let's put it together. We didn't have a UX UI team at that point. It was literally cards on the page. You had to click into, if you wanted business advice, you had to click into it. If you wanted marketing advice, you had to click into it separately. There was no history of chat. Once we realized this is where the power is and this is what people want, once we got to our customers, they said the UI is not very interactive. Once we got that, we realized, okay, this is where we need to double down on. This is what customers want. When we went to colleges and universities, the number one thing, the reason why we built it out further was because we met a user who said, it was a shock to us when we heard it, but I'm so happy that we have users like that, and I'm so grateful that they're so honest with us. They said, I hate the interface. One person said, I hate the interface. I don't know why I would click on so many different cards to get different advice. Why can't I just get it all in one page? Mm-hmm. And we're like, you're absolutely right. So your users telling you what they want, so you got to listen. The other thing was that how can we make this so that they can learn differently? We met with users that were like, I need a guided path that takes me from A to Z. And we met with users who were like, I don't need you to tell me what to do. I'm going to ask you a question and then you answer my question. And that's how I learn. I want to choose my own adventure. So that's what got us into the AI Copilot. And when we met the different personas of founders, because we've broken down the type of founders by, if you're in college or university, you learn differently than if you're a full-time, you have a full-time job, but you want to hustle and build your own startup. That's also a major persona that comes to FounderWay to come and build their company while they're still pursuing their full-time job.
So you're connecting with all these founders, and it's very clear that there is a web here, and that web is community. You're creating a community of founders. All of the FounderWay founders are, in fact, part of their own tribe. If they are choosing to be on FounderWay, it means that they have something similar about them. There is a web that comes through them. How are you approaching adding community building, though, into your go-to-market strategy? Because I'm very interested in how it's not just about, having a community of users, but then it's like, okay, how are we going to then push this community, or well, rather try to make this community larger?
It is something we talk about all the time. It's one of those things where you keep drawing the model of the community you want to build and then scrapping it and then putting it together again and scrapping it. So a couple of ways we can build community that really is showing up to us is, what do founders want? There's so much noise in our everyday life. Do you want another community that's full of noise? Or do you want a curated community that you've built of your advisors, your friends, and your trusted people? And that's pretty much where we want to double down on, is how can we create that community? So if you guys are on FounderWay, both of you as co-founders or people who work together can be on that platform together,
right.
have your ideas dumped inside the second brain, but also have your team on there. And then you have your marketing people have access to a pod of your own community where you only get marketing advice from them.
Right.
Because you know that you have some advisors that are really good at certain things, but you might not want to bring them in certain other things, and might not want to, take away the time that they might spend with you and help them focus as well. So we're looking at this kind of a community curated by the founder that works for them, instead of an open LinkedIn kind of, hey, connect with me kind of a community. So we're still playing around. So there's that model where it's like, connect with me, come see what I'm doing, versus, hey, come into my circle, like, this is what I'm building.
Yeah, and founders need segmented communities, right? Like a hard tech founder is not going to be the same as the founder of an edible product, for example. These are completely different things, and that's really great that you're kind of thinking about that way in a personalized manner. I guess the question then beckons, though, of how you get the word out, right? We did notice that FounderWay was at a Techstars weekend event in Krakow, Poland, for example. And so, what are some of your, more direct strategies on getting the word out and building up this community?
We have been so blessed with advisors. And this is something that we're trying harder and harder to do. I think we struggle with the marketing bit,
right,
but we're slowly building up on it. The B2B marketing piece that we've invested a lot in LinkedIn messaging people and being very curated in how we reach out to the right persona on LinkedIn, and we leverage platforms that are, like Valaxy and like a LinkedIn Sales Navigator kind of platform to reach out to these audiences and say, hey, this is what I can do. The most important piece is curating your message so that it hits the audience correctly.
Right.
If you're not going to provide me value in that first connection message, you're never even going to have that second piece of conversation. So that's how we've started building our network. That's how I got to talk to, we're almost at 70 schools now, where we've had conversations with innovation centers and entrepreneurship centers at colleges across North America.
To follow up on your customer segmentation, do you work with specifically technical ones or tech ones, for example, or non-technical, or both? Or is there a difference there?
Yeah, both. Really, for a college, it really depends on your community. Who are you servicing? Because at the end of the day, it's a B2B2C. We sell the product to the college, and then the college provides it to their students. So generally, they have somewhat of a technical background, but you don't really have to have a technical background to use the product. We have one. It's so nice to sometimes get emails from people. We just got one 2 days ago saying it's an innovation studio in Massachusetts, and they work with people from different backgrounds, different communities. We actually have a demand for translating the platform into another, to Spanish, because ChatGPT can do that. I think that would be our first language to pursue. But it was so nice to hear that even someone who's trying to run a coffee shop would be like, yes, I can use this product. I can relate to the advice that it's providing me, the guidance that it's providing me.
So you mentioned, so many different types of people being able to benefit from FounderWay. Can you share maybe one specific success story of a client that, stands out?
Yeah. It's hard to kind of name clients or get specific into the industry, but some of the outcomes that we've seen and we've been so excited about is people getting grants and being able to write a grant application through FounderWay.
Oh, wow.
Accelerator applications. Building their funding deck and using FounderWay to help curate how they're going to put that deck together and raise funding. So those are some of the top ways that people use it. One that we recently heard from Startup Weekend Techstars that we had in Boston was the customer interview. Because we do so many customer interviews, the way we've trained the AI to build your customer interviews is non-biased. They're open-ended questions so that you can truly learn about your audience that you're trying to solve the problem for.
So we are asking questions to the FounderWay AI about asking questions to somebody else.
Yes.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, I said that to maybe sound a little bit funny, but in the end, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, because as a founder, you don't know everything and you don't have to know everything. And that's what makes it so amazing. I feel like we're not far away from the first unicorn founder that's going to come up and say, I built it this far as a solo founder.
Wow.
For FounderWay, what are some your personal and your company milestones that you hope to hit within the next, few years, moving onwards, and what are some goals?
So something that I talk about is if I can have a philanthropy arm of the business, which would mean that we've made it to the point where we have so much that we not only are just doing charity or giving back into the community, you have a dedicated department or an arm of the company that's just doing that. That would define success for us. Okay. Yes, if you IPO or whatever, every startup has that dream. Yeah. But the reason that we built this company was because we want every founder in the world to have that opportunity to go and work on their idea, to either fail, pivot, or successfully move ahead and live their dream. And that's pretty much the reason why we built FounderWay.
And so you can't get there alone, though, right?
Absolutely.
And so you have your team. Are there external? You've mentioned your advisors.
Yeah.
But are there other, partnerships that you've created in this journey so far?
Yes. So we have ecosystem partners that we will leverage to come out to events. Because we're a startup, we need the support of the ecosystem around us.
Right.
So definitely entrepreneurial ecosystems around us. Techstars Startup Weekend is a partner of ours where we work with individual Techstars Startup Weekends. So that's a great example of partnerships for us. And then the rest are customers/partners because in today's world, everyone is a partner.
Sometimes people do have maybe a little bit of a negative opinion on partnerships, though, and that maybe you should just focus on being able to just push out the product and focusing on your internal ways of, making your product better without engaging other people, especially if the other people that you're partnering with are startups themselves. Do you have an opinion on that? I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like I'm kind of half and half.
I think it depends. I'm going to do the consulting answer. But also it truly depends on what kind of partnership is it. Is it a partnership that's dragging you down? Is it a partnership that's allowing you to grow? And are your goals aligned? I think that's huge. If your goals are aligned and that's what you're doing, then yes, work
and
together.
Those goals should be specific goals.
Absolutely. Make sure you have specific, achievable, measurable goals. I don't mean to sound
smart goals.
Smart, but in reality, have goals that will help you move ahead. A lot of times, Cody and I will now have these conversations where we're like, hang on, you have this call, or we'll look at each other's calendars and we'll be like, what's the ROI on this call? Why are we having this call? because you can be putting in so much time in community partnerships and not have ROI out of it. It's very important if you're a founder who's trying to get to certain revenue targets, to understand why you're doing and what are you doing.
You always have to start with why.
Yeah.
Even with the concept of having, one phone call, you have to start with why.
Absolutely.
I saw something recently that said that, even a 30-minute phone call could lead to 3 hours of work. So actually prepare for a 30-minute phone call to impact your schedule in a manner that's worth 3 hours of
Hang on, I have something to add to that.
Okay.
I think a 30-minute phone call, the burden of a follow-up is what drags me personally down as a founder. And I feel like people don't realize that just booking phone calls in your calendar is not enough.
Right.
It's the follow-up that you do, and you have to immediately follow up. If you don't, you really don't close the deal or the target that you have.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because you want to be able to turn off, right? You want to be able to be like, okay, I can just do this thing and maybe not be able to follow up or have this relate to your day-to-day tomorrow in addition to today. But as a founder, everything is strategic.
Oh,
so you're
totally.
gonna have to.
Imagine you had a call at 6 p.m. Eastern, and it was 3 p.m. Pacific time. You had a call with a college, and now you're like, I'm supposed to follow up with them. I have a child. I want to, spend time with them, put them to bed. And then after that, when I get to my laptop again, I'm like, oh, yes, I have to follow up,
Yep, the late night follow-up emails.
Yes.
To transition to the philosophical questions, as a board member, advisor at the Front Yard, how does education and mentorship play a role in FounderWay?
Absolutely. I think the Front Yard program is really trying to, on a grassroots level, educate its students on entrepreneurship as a career and what avenues it can open up for you while you're in school. Some of the students that are there are truly wanting to learn what it's like to be a founder, what skills they can gather from being a founder. In fact, some of the students, when they're in interviews, people will ask them, are you entrepreneurial? That's a question that, employers are asking students. What does that even mean? It means, are you someone who's going to take initiative? Are you accountable for what you're saying? All of the normal things that people are asking for students to be right off the bat, coming out, graduating from school. And entrepreneurship encompasses all of those skills. So a lot of students want to experience that while they're in college. The other side of it is family businesses. You meet students who are international students or people who have parents who have businesses here and they want to take over their parents' business. How do they grow that business? Keeping all of the different personas in mind, someone who's a first-time entrepreneur, someone who's going to graduate and want a job out of it, someone who's going to take over their family business. What are the different workshops we can provide them, the different opportunities for them to meet other founders? So we're constantly thinking of that and promoting this idea. In fact, for Tech Week next week, we're running some events to help curate some of that.
That's amazing. I have to ask, though, in the context of education and mentorship.
Yes.
Of course, right now, until a very recent time ago, we all had human mentors.
Yes.
And now you are creating an AI mentor, or at least somewhat of a version of that. I have to ask if you think that we are going to reach an equilibrium where there are going to be people and FounderWay, kind of collaborating to help, people like me that are starting their thing, or is this going to be a world where, maybe it is just FounderWay?
I think that what we are creating is something that is the first line of education for founders. We don't think of ourselves as something that could ever replace mentors and advisors that are in our lives. We always think that in fact, we even interview mentors and advisors to understand what are your frustrations when you're working with founders? How can we take some of those frustrations away? So we're always thinking of how can we complement our advisors and mentors to help make their life easier, and what are tools we could provide in their tool belt as well.
And some of the advice that I've gotten from advisors, the best advice that I've gotten maybe, is actually human advice on human day-to-day things.
Absolutely.
About trust, about dealing with personal issues, about things like that. And although I think the FounderWay AI is probably great, I do not think that the FounderWay AI could help me as much with that.
And so, it's not meant to be. We're literally there to educate you about your options so that before you make a decision and take advice that you got in a way that you probably didn't want to use it, you're there, you can take a moment and think, hey, is this pricing structure the right structure for me to move forward? Should I be a subscription-based business? Should I be doing affiliate? What is it that I'm doing? And that's what it's there for.
There's balance in the approach.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
What has the reception been for founders using the AI co-founder? Because you said there was a previous experience, someone didn't like the interface. How did it change over time or eventually become something like a chatbot, a VR figure, digital figure? Is it going to be like Iron Man Jarvis, for example?
Oh my God, that would be amazing. We do think that, I think that there's a huge conversation around user interface and AI. Right now, it's all chat. It's like you type something, it types something back. Right. What are other ways that you could learn from? What if there was a way that I said, hey, help me with my pricing, and it just knows and it starts drawing your different pricing options on a whiteboard for you? Instead of typing things out, it's educating you in a way where you can learn visually. So I really do think that if I were to take a facet of our AI, I would really look into how can it be more visually educational for our founders.
And, visuals in education is so important. It's been important ever since, Brain Pop for our generation, growing up, Tim and Moby, and then working itself into the current world, especially in the context of, remote education, especially in the college world, becoming relevant as well. There could be FounderWay. There are entrepreneurship classes that are popping up at some of the top business schools these days. And so the concept of having an entrepreneurship class that is assisted, perhaps even one that's on AI, that is assisted by an AI-assisted instructor, that's probably the future that we're going to be living in 2 years. I don't even think that that's a 5-year.
We do have, this is a market that we didn't think of, to be honest with you. We didn't think of ourselves as the entrepreneurship education at a college level course. We had some of the top colleges in the country, the entrepreneurship professors, audit our guidance program inside FounderWay, and they said, hey, this is exactly my curriculum, So we match that. And the reason they like to use us as a platform is because in class, a professor has this sort of responsibility of giving examples that are relevant for everybody's business. And it's really hard for one person to be sector agnostic for the whole class. You might have, which you guys have, a podcast, a media company. Another person might think of a clean tech company. If I'm the professor and I know your media company really well, I might constantly be providing examples on your company.
Right.
And the other person might be like, hang on, what about my clean tech product, right? FounderWay takes that and we provide people with examples of how to move forward, removing those roadblocks and those barriers.
I think that's particularly fascinating because a lot of startup advice is not personalized. And I actually think that that's okay. Product market fit is something that is present for every startup. Every startup needs to hit it. But, in the end, you do need to get down to the nitty gritty a bit. And, having an AI that's there to make those specific examples, I feel like would really, decrease the barriers to learning that a lot of people may have, especially in the early stage.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a founder come up to us just a couple of days ago and said, I asked FounderWay to rewrite my value proposition, and it did a way better job than I did. And it really did help them tell their value proposition in a much better way that others could understand.
Okay. You've interacted with so many startups, and from your experiences, or maybe even from your opinion, what are some of the most common categories of challenges and pain points that are frequently asked?
So there are challenges that founders think they have, and there are challenges that founders actually have that they're not focusing on. So I'm going to talk a little bit about both.
Please.
When you meet a founder and you ask them what is the challenge that you have, they'll often tell you funding. And when you ask them why is funding a challenge and why, you realize that often problem customer fit is a problem rather than funding being the problem, or product market fit is the problem. So it really always, almost for early stage founders, when they're having a challenge, it's mostly around them finding their right customer and finding the right beachhead that's going to be their customer. Funding is number one. It always comes up. What are the options for funding? Dilutive, non-dilutive, like how do I know whether I should do a crowdfunding campaign, or how do I know whether I should apply for this grant or that grant? So those are some of the questions founders will come up with. And some of the real challenges that founders will have, as I said, problem customer fit, product market fit. But really, it's like, where do I specifically find my customer? Where can I find that? Find me that person and I will talk to them. And I know it sounds so small. It's like, how can you not find that person? Because they don't know what they don't know and they don't know where to find them. And that's one of the challenges that we hope that, eventually with FounderWay, we can bring this to our founders where they're able to also have access to some customer database where they can go talk to the right people.
And so, flipping the script a bit to, instead of talking about customers, talking about, how you're able to manage your business as a AI, based company. How has it been to communicate this to investors? What is the investors' appetite these days? And even a little bit, does regulation perhaps get in the way a bit of investors being able to invest in a company that, is based off of, AI like yours is?
I think AI has not been like a hindrance for investors. There is appetite in the market for certain types of AI. Definitely, you have to have something that is more exclusive. Like you're doing something very specific in that AI. We're just scraping the surface in terms of reaching out to investors and talking to them. One of the questions that we get often is, what is the big picture? What happens after you've serviced that early stage founder? And to that, our answer is that we hope to become into the founder's digital twin, where they not only are using the platform by themselves, they onboard their marketing team, their sales team, some analytics are in there, and it's intelligent enough to then have agents execute some low-hanging fruit tasks on its own. So that's where we see our big vision is, how can we take away the smaller tasks? And as we do better at the smaller tasks, how do you take a little bit more from the founder's plate, and then eventually their C-level plate?
And in terms of for companies that are out there right now introducing AI to their company, do you see that there might be advantage such as like the first mover advantage, or do you think a more reasonable way to implement AI is like a gradual indoctrination of it?
I mean, it really depends. You just gotta go in.
It differs, right?
Yeah, it differs, and you should just go all in and learn about it as a company. If you're a technical founder and you're not using AI to code, I mean, your job could be cut into half if you would use it. So why not, right? There's code kits out there. There's every company now has their own coding CoPilot almost available.
And so you would recommend, more than not, I guess, the ability to just take time from what you're doing, step back, and look into the AI models, no matter what your industry is.
Yeah, see how you can be efficient. See what AI can take away from your plate. Because if you're not going to do that, your competitor is probably going to do that.
And we all know that the number one resource for startup founders is time. If AI can impact your company by simply decreasing the amount of time that you spend on not just administrative tasks, but also tasks such as vision boarding and planning and everything like that, I think that that's a really great way to move forward. Something that, the first founder that I ever worked with, at the first startup that I ever worked with, had always said was that he always wanted time to think.
Yes.
And he felt like it was a physical product business, and he always felt like he never had time to think. And one of the things he said is actually getting me on board, I was in college at the time, was actually gave him the ability to have time to think. Well, these days, I think that maybe all startup founders might be able to have time to think if they use AI in the right way.
Yeah. Also, great tip. The train from Boston to New York is an amazing way to think, because at 5 a.m. nobody's up.
Oh, I love train time. I used to have this concept called plane time. Plane time for me is... I purposely, even when there's Wi-Fi on the plane, I was on the plane a couple of days ago, I did not enter the Wi-Fi. I stayed on airplane mode because that is the one time that I can actually think about my ideas.
Totally.
And if it's not for that opportunity, how could I ever have the time to really think about my ideas without any distractions? Emails are beautiful. I love to be in communication. But at the same time, you need to ideate.
Yeah. And also process the knowledge that you're learning. I'm listening to podcasts when I'm running, or if I'm doing some household chores, or, but when did I have time to implement what I learned in the podcast in my actual life? Because you're learning something and then you want to take that and put it into practice. Mm-hmm. So I think having that downtime and being able to implement what you've learned is so important.
I see. As we start to wind down, can you tell us maybe a surprise on your journey that you didn't expect to have?
I think one of the best and most pleasant pieces of our journey is we didn't know we could have a team so early on. We always thought that, well, we can only have a team if we have funding, and that will allow us to employ more people. And I wrote about this on LinkedIn a few days ago. I met someone from the career center of a university, and she said, "Would you like to hire co-ops?" And I said, "How do you do that?" And she helped me understand the journey of hiring co-ops who can come and work with you on your product and gain experience and build their portfolio while they are working on your product. Yep. And it's a win-win situation for both sides. And honestly, that's been one of the best things that has happened to us. It happened last Christmas, actually. And since then, we've been able to move 50% faster than 60% faster. In fact, this semester, we've just started our semester and we have 11 co-ops.
That's amazing.
Working with us.
Oh, wow. And what is the greatest challenge throughout your journey so far, too?
Greatest challenge. There's so many challenges. I'm like, which one is the greatest one? It depends on the week and the day. I think now hiring is a challenge, is like finding the right fit, right? Like now that you've been exposed to this amazing group of people, you constantly meet like brilliant, smart people. You really have to understand, how do you match their skills with what you're trying to accomplish so that both parties are happy with what they're doing. And I think talent, as a lot of startups will talk about, recruiting the right type of people, bringing the right type of culture into the company. And as we build this 2 people co-founded company into an actual startup, we constantly think about culture. And it's like raising children almost a little bit. Like, what kind of practices do you want inside your home? What are ways people will handle meetings? How are you going to build your product pipeline? There's just so many different things that you have to think about, and everything you think about impacts 11 other people now.
Okay.
And it doesn't just impact 11 other people. I would argue that your culture decisions impact your customers just as much as they impact your team. And the context of being able to, because your employees or the people that are working for you, your co-ops, they are extensions of yourself.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's the first thing. But the most important extension of yourself as a business is not your team. It's actually your customers, because your customers are what keep you alive. And so keeping that in mind is that your culture relates to your customers. You cannot have a great culture if you do not create a culture where that relates to your customers.
Absolutely.
And being a startup founder yourself and working with so many founders, what is one advice you can provide with our audiences?
Run for the customers and the investors will come. Because I meet a lot of founders that are constantly running after funding. And they're like, I want funding. And the environment is different. What used to be pre-seed requirement is now, your angels are asking for that. What used to be seed requirement is now pre-seed requirement. Investor appetite has changed since post-COVID, and we all read about it, and it's true. But the fact that you really want to understand your what is the actual need? Why do you want this money? And what are you going to do with it? What are other ways you can accomplish the task? Hiring co-ops.
Awesome.
So one final question now.
Yes.
We like to ask this question to everyone. If you could change one thing about your journey, what would it be?
I think moving fast and having confidence that you are doing the right thing. I think that sometimes this is my personal experience, is I can spend too much time thinking if I'm doing the right thing. Instead, if I think I took a step back and said, why not? And what are the risks involved if I did this step? And then think of how I would mitigate those steps, instead of thinking, oh my God, am I going to do it? Oh my God, no, stop. Ask yourself, why not? And if you did it, what would go wrong? And what's the worst that can happen?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kiran. For those who are interested, we encourage everyone to learn more about FounderWay. Thank you so much, Kiran.
Yeah, we're happy to provide your listeners with an offer of 1 month premium access, and we'll put the code in when you guys release the podcast. And before we close this, I have a question for you guys.
Please.
This is your final episode of your awesome season.
Thank you.
What has the experience been like? How are you guys feeling?
Feeling incredible.
Yeah.
And thank you for asking. Everybody has a story to tell. Sincerely, I believe that. And the founder experience is not an easy one. It's a roller coaster ride. And what we wanted to do with this season was to really, really show the real story of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And we're speaking to people like you, right? People that have incredible experiences throughout their life, but they've chosen to take their talents to solving a very specific problem.
Absolutely.
And I just have a genuine curiosity of why. And I think that we've got that answer from so many different people. But the whys are all in a way where I think that everyone does genuinely also want to make the world a better place, or at least make it better in what they deem to be the better in their eyes. And
for me, as we kickstart this media venture, it's just so awesome to see different descriptions and definitions of entrepreneurs, from crowdfunding to all these different types of way to fund, but also like different products, different stages. It's just inspirational to see like there's no one definition of what it means to be an entrepreneur. And yeah, that's what is very inspiring for me.
Everyone that's been in your seat has said just like such amazing things. And I am excited not only for them, though. This is kind of piggybacking on what we've said a lot in this podcast. I'm also excited for their customers.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really think that you're doing a good job with something, right, and you're putting out something good into the world, you're not just impacting yourself, you're impacting the people that use your product. Now, your product directly is going to impact a lot of lives.
Yeah.
I hope so. It's this year I've been so lucky that I've had some time to. My husband asked me, "What do you want for your 40th birthday?" I said, "I want 10 days to go walk." And this is my thing. I go walk the Camino de Santiago, and I wanted to walk the Porto section, and I had 10 days to go and ponder about like, what do I want in life? And I think if I don't know how I'm going to do it, and I did a calculation at the back of a paper napkin. I want to directly or indirectly be able to impact 1 billion people in some way. And I know it sounds like a big number. It sounds so fancy, but no, I have math behind it. I have a calculation behind it. And I really do feel that all of us collectively, with bringing out voices of other people, and if I can see a person that looks like me, that talks like me, or has an experience like me, I'm more likely to believe what they're telling when they're telling their story, and believe that I can do it too. When I see someone like me on camera, I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it. And I want every person who's watching this or who's listening to this, you can do it. Just think of why not, and what do you have to lose?
Awesome.
Why not?
And in closing, do you have anything to plug? Anyone to plug? Where can people find FounderWay?
Yeah, we're on FounderWay.ai. Find us on the web. You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok with the same FounderWay handle. And if you want to reach out to me personally too, feel free to send a message on LinkedIn or shoot me an email, Kiran@founderway.ai. Happy to help people move forward in their journey in any way we can.
Thank you so much, Kiran. You've made me emotional. And I think this is the perfect encapsulation of everything we've been trying to do. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me here.